Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Star Trek Discovery Spoilercast. I am your host, Captain Logan. I'm back from a couple-week hiatus as I was in Germany for a while, so we are doing this a little bit late. But, guys, I got to tell you, I'm really glad that we're doing this late because we get to talk about the first 3 episodes and not just the pilot, which is going to make this an entirely different discussion, I think, than it would have been otherwise. Let me introduce my panel this evening. First of all, as always, it's Brown Coat Eric.
Hi.
And coming to you from inside the Treknado, it's Adam.
Hey.
And then our chat moderator, as I want to say as always, but as often as we can get him, it's our intern here at Geekvolution, Alden.
How's it going, everybody?
And for the first time on the channel, my good buddy, Alexi.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Before we get started, let me do a little introduction for Alexi and let you guys meet him. Alexi and I have been friends for years now, and Alexi, we've been trying to get you on the channel forever, and it's just never managed to pan out somehow. But Alexi has watched us for years, and he and I have been really good friends for a long time. He is a publicist for a number of major authors, including Kevin J. Anderson, who I got to interview thanks to Alexi a couple of years ago at Planet Comic-Con, and he's really got me in touch with the publishing world, and he's done a lot of great things for us here at the channel, and a lot of folks don't know him, haven't got to meet him, and now you're going to get to hear him talk about Star Trek Discovery. Thanks for being here, Alexi. It's good to see you, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me on. This is awesome. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, James. And like I said, huge fan.
Thanks, buddy. I'm a fan of yours as well. And now, let's get into Star Trek Discovery. So, this has been obviously really long awaited. It's a series that was put off for a long time, and we got more and more curious about what this thing was going to end up turning into, as it seemed kind of mired in all kinds of bizarre issues behind the scenes with what with Fuller having to leave and with a lot of constraints that it seemed like the network was putting on it. And some of that stuff I think you could really see on the screen. I don't know what I was expecting. It wasn't this. In a lot of ways, it wasn't this. But then I guess in some ways it was. I think, first of all, let me just start by saying I think I expected dark Star Trek.
I mean, that's kind of what you got.
Yeah, and that is what I got.
You can debate whether it's.
But then
Star
the question
Trek.
becomes: is it Star Trek? And I guess we'll certainly have to talk about that. Let's go ahead and go round robin as we always do on these spoiler casts, and let everybody give their initial thoughts. This time on just the series so far, where we're at, and what your initial thoughts were after the pilot, and then maybe after seeing the second, third episode, however you want to look at it, and give me your best thing and your worst thing. And I want to start tonight with Eric.
All right.
Can we start with you?
Sure, we
Is that
can start
okay?
with me.
All right, go ahead, Eric.
Well, it's kind of talking about 2 different things because I think the pilot is awful. Since we watched it, we've kept describing it as like the prequel novel where like they made it during production and didn't get all the right information, and so it got out the day that the first episode came out, but it doesn't actually match up. It's really bad
and bizarre.
Yeah, it's really poorly written. I don't know what's happening half the time, or more importantly, why things are happening half of the time. And then the next episode, when you get to episode 3, it's better.
Yeah.
I liked the 3rd episode a little bit, or quite a bit when we first watched it. We rewatched it before this, and I liked it less, mostly because I realized I really hate Michael. I think she's a terrible character and a really bad lead.
She's a terrible person.
She's a really bad person, but she's also the best at everything.
I won't go that far yet. We'll talk about all this. I won't go that far yet because I don't think she's a person yet.
That's fair. That's fair.
There are no characters yet in this.
Oh, that's not fair.
No, the captain is a character.
That's not fair, but we'll get there.
I don't think this is a very good show. So far, the 3rd episode feels more like Star Trek than the first 2 episodes, but I don't think any of them are particularly good or great. And I don't know, other than the name, why anyone's showing up to watch this when there are a bunch of other really good sci-fi shows on television right now. You'd be better going to watch The Expanse if you want a dark science fiction show.
It's got to do a lot to compete, and the best way it could have done that, I think, is to be Star Trek.
Yeah, be different. Be the light in the darkness right now, and we're not, and it's not doing that. I I don't know. It's not good.
Do you want to throw out a best thing, worst thing? And I know we're kind of talking about two things, like you said, but just the series, like as a series, like what are you most excited about? And what are you least excited about? Let's do it that way.
I'm most excited about the captain. He seems really interesting. I wish the show was about him. I think it'd be really interesting to do a Star Trek show about a morally ambiguous captain.
Yeah.
Or captain that the show knows is morally ambiguous.
I don't know if he's not the main character, but I think it would be. But I want to think that he'll be around longer than I think he's going to.
But I don't think Michael's interested. Like, she should not be the main character.
Jason Isaacs is expensive.
That's fair. That's fair.
Could be it.
It's a good point, but he's good on the page too. I mean, he's giving a great performance, but he's actually solid, I think, on the page.
So I'll say he's my best thing, because you talked a lot about the effects and like the design and like how good everything looks.
It looks great,
but I think that's par for the course. The Expanse looks just as good as this, and that's on Sci-Fi. Like, I think this is par for the course. I don't think it looks astounding. It looks as good as science fiction television looks right now.
Alexi, do you agree with that?
I disagree with that. I actually think if there's one good thing we can take away from this, the one solid thing that I would say is great about it is visually it is arresting. Visually, it is a stunning piece of sci-fi on a visual scale. First of all, for the first time, we look like, you know, the bridge, the entire aesthetic of Starfleet looks both scientific and militaristic at the same time, if that makes sense. It looks like the forward view screen is not just, you know, set to, you know, front window, but actually has, for the first time since, I think, Wrath of Khan, a tactical display. It looks like, okay, this is actual instrumentation. It's trying to show you things, why it's there, what is it doing, and so on. I think it has a very interesting look and aesthetic to it. However, I think that this is a lot of sizzle and not a whole lot of steak. That's going to be my problem. Is that you have Michael. God, I want to call her Michelle. Michael, who is a horrible human being, if a human being at all. I'm still kind of, is she a person? Is she a cardboard cutout? When I look at things like TNG gave us archetypes rather than characters for the first 4 or 5 episodes. Easy. But at least they gave us archetypes. I have nothing here to hang my hat on for the first 2 episodes. And once we get to Jason Isaacs' character, we have a character, but is he really a character, or is he just, by the way, I'm mysterious? Mysterious. I mean, when you have to lampshade it by him saying, I have the lights down low because I think it makes me look mysterious, you're playing with something there. And I think that.
Yeah, but this must have like an eye condition. Wasn't that the whole reason they did? Yeah. I mean, it was a silly contrivance to have the light when the rest of the show is almost that dark. I don't know why you had to.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of the thing is that you have a writer somewhere lampshading that. Okay, he's going to be in a dark room. We're going to have to actually kind of point that out. Why?
Yeah,
because we're going to have to. Because when you have the rest of Star Trek looking, frankly, bright and shiny, and then you have this, it's going to stand out. When you are becoming more ambiguous than DS9, and I love DS9, but when you're more morally ambiguous than DS9 2 episodes in, holy mother.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about the military versus exploration questions and or issues, and the question of whether or not this is going too far in the dark Star Trek direction where it's getting cynical. Before we do that, let's get opening thoughts from everybody else. Adam, how'd you feel about this, buddy? Where are you right now?
I'm not sure what to make of it yet. I'm still. Yeah. You
don't want to say anything? Why are you here?
I don't want to be super harsh because, I mean, just thinking back about how bad Star Trek has been in general during the first season, excepting the original series. I mean, every single Star Trek spinoff has had a poor first season.
That's true.
The big difference
with this show, of course, is that it's more serialized than Star Trek has ever been, and that they're trying to tell one story over a long duration. What you're getting these days, outside of Star Trek, because obviously we haven't had Star Trek in 12 years, what you're getting a lot these days when you look at broadcast television is shows that come out swinging and then fall off real hard in the second or third season. Because, and that's really easy to do when you have a great story to tell initially, and then you don't know where to go after that. So I don't know if we can bank on Star Trek shows always suck until they get better.
That's true, because,
especially if they abandon this and they go in the anthology direction, which is the rumor right now, and just the rumor, and I really don't know if they'll do that.
So they were playing that that's a rumor for this show? I thought they were talking about
No, there's a rumor that
there's a long-term reception. This is going to be an anthology series. That really, you're going to do a Discovery, then you're going to do something else. And there's also a long-term rumor that what they're trying to do is that they're trying to build it into a back door just in case Discovery tanked hard. Those have been the ongoing rumors. Now, I would say this. Adam, if you're saying you don't have an opinion yet, you're probably the only person out there that doesn't. Because from what I've seen, you either really loved it or you really hated it. And there was really no ambiguity in between, particularly on the first
and it's interesting you're saying that because Eric and I didn't exactly have that.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I just don't think it's very good.
Yeah, I mean, first episode, my whole thing was maybe there's you get different writers in. Maybe the writing could get better. I don't really see that it's even Star Trek yet, and I don't have anything to grab onto because it feels like a total reimagining. It doesn't even fit anywhere in continuity. Obviously, we'll talk about that issue, but like just that pilot, I didn't have anything to really sink my teeth into. But then the third episode, I found really intriguing.
I'm gonna make a preposterous blanket statement prediction.
I love it when you do that.
I think this and Iron Fist. I'm going to say this and Iron Fist.
I brought up Iron Fist when Alexi were talking.
I'm going to say this and Iron Fist. We are now at the end of the golden age of television. It's done, and we have now looked at all of the great shows that have come out over the past decade, and we're viewing it as a formula, and we're now trying to create those kinds of shows in the most formulaic way possible. The golden age of television, I'm saying, we're probably at the death throes of that, and we are now making sophisticated television that is just as formulaic as episodic television.
That is a possibility. That is a possibility. It would be a great shame for both storytelling, fandom, and the art of television if that's the case. But it's quite possible that we have just tried to boil it down to its component parts.
I mean, that's obviously what's already started to happen with Netflix. We'll see if they come out of that. And of course, we have different teams and things. But it's really sad to see that with this because there's no reason that had to happen with this. Let me back this off for a second.
Star Trek. Sorry.
No. What are you say, Alexa?
Of all of Star Trek, this had everything going for it.
Everything going for it. Yeah.
Right.
How counterintuitive.
It had the budget.
Counterintuitive is. Yeah. Go ahead.
It had the writing. It had the budget. It had the writing. It had the producer behind it. It had a
I would say cast.
It had a great cast. It had everything behind it that I would have said would make a great Star Trek. Actually, great science fiction. Let's forget Star Trek. But that's something else that it had for it. It actually had a brand behind it that is beloved. And still, you have to try really hard to foul this up. And to a certain extent, did they foul it up? No. Did they strike out? No. But they did tee one off into left field, and I'm not entirely sure if it gets caught or not. Wow, that was a mixed benefit.
Yeah, what's interesting about that, Alexi, is like it's not spiraling out of control because people are liking it a lot more than I would have expected. It'll be interesting to see if it can hang on to people. If this ends up having any legs. Let me back this off a little bit and say how counterintuitive is every creative choice in the show. Like regardless of whether or not it's working from the get-go, how do you start in 23rd century, 2 years after The Cage, 2 years before in Kelvin continuity, those events start, and you make the whole thing a complete reimagining, but you pretend like it's in prime continuity. Yeah. How does that even happen? And I'm sure a lot of that is because of strange things the network asked for, but even forgetting the continuity issues, just the question of why would you start back? Why would you start in the past? Why would you start backwards? Why would we not have immediately sprung forward? Because everything they're trying to avoid in just not having to deal with continuity stuff, you can get away with going forward. You want to reinvent the Klingons? Fine, go to the 25th century and have them reinvent themselves.
And everything works better if you go forward. The technology works better. We haven't seen the Klingons 100 years works better if it's 100 years past. What's the last one?
Past Voyager. Past Voyager. Past Nemesis.
Yeah.
I mean, there are. I promised I would not bring continuity into this. I swore.
No, we have to. We have to. And we won't make the whole conversation about that, but we have to. Yeah.
Because honestly, I tried to view this as okay. IP. There's a lot of convoluted IP law, which I'm not going to get into too much. I promise. There's a lot of convoluted IP law that goes into what Paramount owns versus what CBS owns and so on. So really, they can't use a lot of the stuff from the Kelvinverse in TV, because the TV is owned by one separate organization and the movie properties are owned by a separate organization.
Right, but doing what they're doing, Alexei, why would they even need it? So this is where I was going with its counterintuitive point. What got Star Trek, what got regular people that didn't watch Star Trek before excited about Star Trek was it got fun again. Mm-hmm. Yes. And that's the only thing that they needed from the Kelvinverse to bring into this. Right. And it's the only thing it doesn't have. And I mean, I think the third episode was more entertaining. I'm still not going to call it fun, you know what I mean? But it's just it's really strange that they're going for this for this real dark aesthetic and moody kind of show, trying to piggyback on the success of the Abrams films.
The only thing they did bring over was the lens flares.
The lens flares and the Dutch angles and here's the thing: the pilot. It's gonna be hard not to jump all over the place.
Yep.
The pilot looks like those films, taking all the fun out of it. I mean, they even have the rapid-fire photon torpedoes and stuff, and phasers. The third episode, they get completely away from that. This aesthetic looks so much better when you don't do the really super gimmicky directing and stuff. And I read it. Yeah, I read a review. Well, and you remember, even Beyond does it, but it kind of works okay there. Right. You remember, like, we opened that movie with like almost like a 180, and then we pull back, and this was doing that kind of thing a lot. They get to the third episode and they just shoot the stuff they build, and it looks great.
Right. It was almost. I mean, with the Dutch angles in particular, I was like, okay, are we trying to outdo Battlefield Earth for Dutch angles? I'm just putting that out there, because my God. Now I would say this, that the weird. Even the choices they made for actually doing essentially two separate pilots. They did a 2-hour pilot, which was just
the other incredibly counterintuitive choice. It's baffling.
And then they did actually the real pilot, which is okay. You get to Discovery. Okay, was not. I mean, I still had problems with it. But nowhere near the problems that I had with the first 2 episodes they did, where honestly I'm wondering, did they put these people's brains in a blender? Just from a storytelling point of view, you had to suspend the disbelief that these guys were intelligent people just going in there. I mean, they're sitting there going, "Oh my God, one of our satellites is disabled. What happened to it? It's got a black hole in the middle of it. Someone shot at it. What are you thinking?"
But remember, Michael is the most smartest person in all of Star Trek.
We'll get to the details in a second. Adam, most exciting, least exciting thing.
It looks really, really, really good. Like, they spent a lot of money on it. Yeah. The least exciting thing was, I didn't really care for the pilot episode, like you said. I like the third episode a lot better. I don't know. As far as I mean, I'm still kind of on the fence about whether or not.
I would actually fully recommend, if no one's watched it and is thinking about watching it,
third episode.
Start at episode 3. Do not go backwards.
Especially because so much of what worked in that episode, I felt like I had to ignore that the pilot even happened.
Right.
Because
Michael is more likable if you ignore the pilot.
Yeah, and the thing is, we were already saying with the pilot, my wife called it a 2-hour teaser. Sarah, by the way, hated the pilot and didn't like the third episode very much, but said at least there was something to sink your teeth into it. It felt like there were real people, there were sort of real people actually driving the story along. But she said, that is a 2-hour teaser, and I'm with her, and that the story starts before the story starts. Right. I mean, it really has that problem. It watches like they made a movie to give you the backstory, and then they jump into the actual series with that third episode. Don't watch that pilot, which is such a weird thing to say. But I don't think you're missing anything. I thought so much of what happened in that could have been given to us in cursory exposition, and we would totally understand what was happening. And usually I'm going to err on the side of show don't tell, but the story hasn't happened yet. We don't need that backstory.
And everything that happens feels so contrived.
It feels completely contrived.
It really feels like it was made later.
All you have to do is say, Michael Burnham did this mutiny and she started this Klingon war, and I don't need the details. I mean, maybe you can give them to us as we move along, but getting the details is what makes her seem like a complete idiot, because I don't understand why she had to do anything she did. Also, we keep saying in that third episode that that she started that war. Yes, she did, but not for the reasons they're saying she did. And that
she did because she was curious, because she went out to investigate.
But they're blaming her for it because of the mutiny, and if you'll recall, the mutiny did nothing. She walks on the bridge, or she tells the weapons guy to fire on the ship. Giorgio walks in and says, "Belay that order," and I can't believe that that wasn't enough time for the firing to happen. But belay that order. And then nothing happened. How is she responsible for all these deaths?
Is it possible that was rewritten? Is it possible that they last minute had her stop the firing so that Michael is still a likable character? Is it possible that there is a different version of this episode?
The only way that happens is if they rewrote it after they shot the third episode. It's the only way that happened.
Well, but it would make more sense in the third episode if she actually had said, if they actually fired.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. They would have had to have made that episode and then changed the pilot.
Well, I would say this, is that what's strange is that they've done actually a character archetype like Michael better in other Star Trek. She's essentially Tom Paris.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Paris.
Yeah, sure.
And they didn't show...
And you introduce her as
in jail,
a prisoner in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
They did an episode in Star Trek Next Gen called Tin Man, where they had a Beta Z who was essentially cracking up because his psychic power was too much, and everyone hated him because he was on a away mission, and because he agreed too much with the guys, a bunch of people got killed, and they felt that he was that. What's her name? Rolaren. I mean, you've done better characters in this vein that you could put out there and say, gee, you don't need the entire backstory. You could slowly, and as much as I hate flashbacks, you could easily...
But you don't need them. But you also don't need them. And if that's the story you're telling, fine. But they obviously wanted to, shove that out there to give us, I guess, kind of, sort of, the status quo of this universe. But we don't even really have a lot of that.
We skipped 6 months. We don't have any more sense of the status quo.
Well, and I mean, what it was before the war. If if the idea is to establish what this world looks like when it's more peaceful, it should look more like the Star Trek right? And then all hell breaks loose, and now Starfleet has this identity crisis of military versus exploration. And I really like the discussion about that. If it has to be a war show, it's good that we haven't lost what Star Trek is supposed to be, and that we're talking about it, and that we have jaded people like that scientist guy in the 3rd episode who's upset that not only are people that he cares about dying, but he doesn't even get to do what he's out there for. Like Starfleet's not about what he's out there for, and it's shattered his everything. Like, I like that we're talking about that stuff.
Well, I mean, they also spaced the guy in the 1st episode who was like, "I'm an explorer." Wait, what happened? Like, my God. It was.
Let me move to Alden real quick. Alden, do you want to weigh in on this before we go to questions?
I do. This was confusing. Not in a I couldn't follow a way, but okay. So without making this too drawn out, I'm the least qualified person here, and I was saying this to Alexi before the show. Star Trek is not my thing. I'm a very, very very novice in Star Trek. I like it. I don't believe in the whole beef between Wars fans and Trek fans. I've tipped my hat.
You have time. You're a youngin. You have time. We will fix you.
It's true. Okay. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm going to the.
Good on you. Good on you. You should love both. Trust me.
Exactly.
It is possible.
Yes. Different things. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I was 11 when 09 came out. I think that adds up, right? So I grew up in this sort of.
Look at Alexi. I was going to do a facepalm, but there's no reason.
Somebody check on him. I grew up watching episodes of Voyager with my mom that I can barely remember, and then Abrams Trek. And so what I thought, was that, when they announced this title, Discovery, that sort of says, hey, we know what the core of this is, I thought.
Oh, it's almost redundant. It's almost like calling it Star Trek. It's wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. Right? It's like Star Trek or something like that. And so I was, okay, all right, awesome. And then seeing Beyond, I know Cap and I talked about Beyond, when I started working with Geekvolution, how that really, as far as blockbustery as it is, at the end, with Balthazar, talking about, what is a man's place in a post-war world, all of a sudden there were ideas, and I was like, all right, okay, and I'm getting a show, awesome. And then I watched it, and I was like, oh, okay. I don't hate this, but at the same time, I sort of felt similarly to how I just felt with the back half of Defenders, where it's I was sort of all right, I felt almost like I was doing an assignment, and that was the weirdest feeling, especially with people like Jason Isaacs and Michelle Yeoh in there, and Doug Jones. It was just odd. I felt like everything fell into place in a really strange way. And 3 is definitely better than the pilot, but I still am sort of not motivated. I sort of need to go start the Star Trek education now to undo things that I've seen.
Wow, yeah, and of course that's not going to motivate you anymore to keep watching the show. I feel like this show really has kind of the Man of Steel approach, where it doesn't think Star Trek is cool enough. Like Man of Steel, its mission statement was make Superman cool again, and this seems.
And the problem with that is that that's frustrating. That's frustrating contextually.
Even if you didn't think Star Trek was cool and was cool enough before, you had a lot of just regular audience people
who decided
that they did that with 09, and now it's solid. And I hate to say that pilot is really kind of boring, and the only thing to keep me why I wasn't invested in any character. The only thing to keep me watching is as you said, it's an assignment. I'm a Star Trek guy. I have to watch it.
Yeah, and the thing is, I could have given them more of a pass. If, in a weird way, if this makes sense, if Discovery hit right after Darkness, I would have been all right, this is what you've committed to as a brand. Then you had Mr. Fast and Furious come in and show me how it was done. Now you have so much less of an excuse.
Yeah.
And this is
Justin Lin was running the show.
Yeah, same.
And it's a shame because there's such great thought-provoking Star Trek out there. God. If you look at Sitting on an Edge of Forever, A Measure of a Man, In the Pale Moonlight, there are great thought-provoking episodes out there of Star Trek that are quality science fiction. When I see this, I'm going to steal a line from an author client of mine, Dan Wells, who said he genuinely hopes that the writers of this, and he hadn't seen the 3rd episode yet, so I don't know yet. He's like, I genuinely hope that the writers of this actually get to work on that Battlestar Galactica pilot that they really want to do.
Yeah, and the same way that JJ needed to move to Star Wars.
It has the same problem Stargate Universe had, right? Where suddenly it's this giant, massive tonal shift for no good reason because that's what's in right now. Except, like Man of Steel, they're like 10 years behind.
This felt like the Star Trek.
Like Fantastic Four, you know.
This felt like the Star Trek that got greenlit and made right after Battlestar Galactica got really big.
Yeah. Yes. No one's talking about it anymore. It was 10 years ago. And like your big science fiction things now are kind of more peppy. Like we have dark science fiction on right now, but that people are loving. But you notice none of it's space opera. Like some of it's set in space, but it's not exactly space opera.
I wouldn't say that. There's certain space operas out there. I mean, you know, if you look at things like Dark Matter, The Expanse, even Killjoy.
But is The Expanse space opera? Because I've only watched the pilot, and I don't know how much of that is actually.
I would say,
yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, I'd say in a broad sense, it's absolutely space opera. It's if you consider.
But the point I'm trying to make is, you get in a ship and you venture out and you go look for stuff. Yeah. We don't have a bunch of those shows right now that are super dark and relentless, and so we have to make Star Trek like that because nobody's going to watch it. It feels almost like it was sabotaged or something because I don't get a sense of who the show is for.
I have no idea who this is
until I get to that 3rd episode where now I'm intrigued by some, intrigue.
Yeah.
Because you're now watching the show you're watching.
Yeah.
The way I explained it to you a couple of days ago was it felt like the pilot is if the opening scene of Firefly was the 2-hour pilot of Firefly and it ended with the like ships coming down. You're like
guy coming down and
okay,
but he
so
gets shot right behind Mal.
And then you watch the show. You're like, oh, that's not the show I'm watching.
Yeah.
If it was literally the Battle of Serenity Valley in which everybody dies. And then the next episode is, well, something completely different now. You're absolutely right, Eric. That's exactly what we watched for 2 hours was the Battle of Serenity Valley, in which we didn't need to know anything for that. We can get that in snippets.
Here's what I think. If this was all dropped together like a regular Netflix binge show,
right,
you could get away with that more. You risk people turning it off after those first 2 episodes, but at least you're not broadcasting to regular TV viewers something that is not remotely indicative of what the show actually is going to be.
It's the only thing that was your only advertisement.
They didn't even air the whole.
Yeah. Did they not?
They only aired the first hour. No way. Is that
no way?
They aired the first hour, and then you had to go to CBS
really?
for the rest.
Oh, so then it didn't even matter.
Yeah.
Well, Adam just said it got preempted by football.
For 30, it started 20 minutes late. Yeah.
So that worked on no one. No one saw the first half and went, yeah, I need to see the rest of this.
To sign up to CBS All Access.
Well, and here's the thing. They did get a lot of subscriptions for All Access out of it, but I don't know how much of that was the fact they broadcast it and how much of it was just, to be fair to CBS, their advertising for this was really good. Everybody knows about it. Yeah. And so if people figured out what day it was going to drop, they might have subscribed just so they could see that first episode. But I'm telling you guys, just to get into All Access for 6 seconds, a bunch of people are going to subscribe to this for 7 days and leave and not actually pay. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
It is I saw this as somebody put it as like it was a surprise that it was biggest day, biggest week, and biggest month for All Access. I was like, no one is surprised. No one knew this existed 12 months ago.
No, we were making fun of it for saying like All Access Originals. You're like, no, take the S off of that. You have one right now. That's all you have.
To be fair, they have two.
What's the other one?
What is it? The Good Fight?
Yeah, it's like the Good Fight spinoff. Yeah.
Like literally, I'm like, why do you need a sequel to a show that
fine, Adam. They can have their ass.
I think it was on CBS and they just moved it over
They
there.
can have. Oh, well, no, strike that. They can't have the ass. It's not an original because it started somebody. I hate that, by the way. Netflix does it sometimes. They'll buy a show, they'll make it a season, they'll call it original. No, it's not original. It started someplace else. No, it's not. It's only original in the sense that the new episodes weren't made by someone else first. Anyway, Alden, let's go to the audience and start getting into some of the nitty-gritty, shall we?
Audience, how are you?
Hi, audience. How are you, folks? The way we do the Spoilercast is we do, and that took a while, but we do our initial 40 minutes of initial discussion, and now we're going to go to the audience and let them kind of direct the conversation. And
that was the 2-hour pilot for our discussion on the show.
That's right. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I got 20 minutes of that got preempted by football.
It's going to be completely different after this, I promise.
Yeah, we're 6 months later. I'm going to have a beard again. It'll be great. So Alden is going to start throwing out some questions from the audience. Let you guys help us decide what of the details nitty-gritty to talk about, and we'll fill in with bits that we want to make sure that we get to talk about. Alden, anything and everything. Let's get started.
All right, so before I go into the first question that I have here, I did want to say that Grady Childs very early on echoed what you guys have been saying, that that pilot feels like the prequel, like comic miniseries that nobody bought, but nobody wanted, but you bought all 5 issues because you needed them. Like
it's
you needed them in the collection. Yeah.
It's that prequel novel for Star Trek 09 Countdown, which gives you it's attempting to give you those details you need for the background for those characters, but ultimately it doesn't actually make any sense, and that's exactly what this is. I'm sorry, Alden. Throw some questions, sir.
Everyone's frozen?
Is everyone frozen?
Oh, just Alden.
No.
Alden, can you hear us, buddy?
I can barely hear.
I don't think it's
No, I don't hear him at all. I think he's frozen.
I think Alden's frozen.
Although I think he's moving.
No,
Alden, your microphone's
not
working, buddy. Okay, we hear you now.
You hear me now? Well, that was strange.
Yes, sir.
Anthony Cabrera asked, how did y'all feel about
I thought I was going to have to do something.
What's that?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. How did you guys feel about the Klingon? Because they were the reason that Anthony liked the pilot more than he liked episode 3.
They're not Klingons?
Not Klingons.
They don't even have Klingon ships.
They look ridiculous.
I want to
like eggplant.
Oh, I don't mind the design.
I don't mind the design.
I don't mind. I do not mind the design because
they're space
Not when
I saw the motionless picture.
Yeah, it makes them emotionless.
It's real hard to act that makeup, right?
Everything in Klingon.
I saw the emotionless picture when Klingons changed the first time, and slowly have evolved into what we've seen with the forehead ridges and so on. I didn't mind that so much. I think the radical change in culture.
Yeah.
I mean, because ironically, the third episode is called Context is King, and I think the biggest problem that I have is that I have no context for this. Yeah, I have no context for. I know what Klingons are. I know that they're supposed to be a warrior race, obsessed with honor and glory and so on and so forth. And we're not doing that.
They do not care about honor.
Well, we are doing that. We're throwing those words around. It's just I don't know that they know exactly what they are. They're like all of their dialogue in that first episode is a bunch of weird ideological platitudes that Takuvma might just be kind of making up in order to
It's the main issue, right?
It is, and you know what? It's funny. I talked to Leslie this morning about this. I also brought that up, that he's just saying it. And the thing is, it sounds like it should be fascinating. So I start really like picking it apart and wanting to really think about it, right? Like he's talking about how the Federation is trying to change everyone. They're taking away our individuality, which I think he means of a species, not actually individual people. That we're not allowed to be a warrior race anymore because they're all about peace. And when they say we come in peace, they don't, because they want to change us. They're actually trying to ruin us from the outside in, and something else.
Right.
And
they haven't seen
that's the thing is,
so that's counterintuitive. If you haven't met these people in 100 years, then how
If they're that concerned about that, why don't they just do? First of all, why now? Why didn't this happen? Because my first thought watching it, because I've watched this twice, my first thought watching it the first time was, well, the Klingons seem like pansies. Why don't they just try to conquer the Federation? That's what they do. If they're that worried about their identity being changed, just go take them over. And then I watched it a second time and realized, because I don't think this is driven home enough that, oh, okay, the idea is they're splintered and this is what he's trying to do to bring them all together. So they to reunite them. So they couldn't actually really all band together and go after the Federation, because they're acting like 24 separate things. But why now? Why now? Why didn't someone try
and if they're splintered, wouldn't some of them have contact with the Federation? Some of them not?
Yeah, and I'm not looking at this guy who's trying to set himself up as the second Kalis as like a brilliant genius strategist for coming up with this.
No, all of the Klingon scenes to me were like this. Like,
yeah,
I
glazed over. Yeah. I had a really hard time keeping up with them and following them, and I feel like the only thing I had to grasp onto was my knowledge of Star Trek. But they're reinventing it at the same time as they're telling us it's in prime continuity, and that's why I said, Alexi, it's impossible not to talk about continuity, because
that's fair.
The problem, the biggest issue with the Klingons, as with a lot of things in this show, is if you just called it a reinvention in the first place, I could go blank slate and forget everything I know. But it's asking me to remember things.
Well,
it's really frustrating. It's a Todd McFarlane problem.
What's weird about it is that if they had put this even post-Voyager, it would actually make more sense. Because
you can get away with almost everything you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but also at that point, you have the Klingons, like, we know that the Klingon Empire is like ready to blow itself apart at every 5 minutes.
Right.
Okay. So they went into isolationism 100 years later. Oh my God, the Klingons are back. That makes sense.
Totally different. Yeah, it does.
This is in a weird space where the Federation is evidently expanding, because now the Federation, where I got the first, watching TOS, you had the humans, Andorians, Vulcans, Tellarites, and the people from Corridon. That's about it. Okay.
Well, not even until Journey to Babel. I mean, that is about
that's fair.
To the Corridon, yeah.
You got, like, okay, this is a small power against another smaller or a larger power, which is a Klingon Empire. But now you have like 50 million alien races, because evidently they have the special effects budget to put obligatory Daft Punk guy in the first episode.
Yeah, you know what though? I'm fine with that. That's and like that is a very Star Trek movie thing to do, to have random species like that. But I mean, we get the sense even in TOS that there are that there are a bunch of member species. They're always ambiguous about it. They don't want you to know how many there are, so they can keep throwing random species in there if they want to. And I don't think that's really so much of a problem, except the issue that Eric raised while we watched the pilot, which was the guy that becomes the first officer looks like his race is kind of major, and of course we'll never see it again. It's just like the Denobulans.
There's a lot of that in this, where it's like, okay, so you're tapping into the veins of the universe to revolutionize space travel. Well, you've got to have teardown for that, because that can't be there at the end of the series.
Right.
Yeah.
All of this is like that.
Yeah.
You're trying to turn yourselves into Ionians. That doesn't work like that. Wow, that was now. If you guys can pull that one up,
yeah.
And all the
hey, they brought it back in DS9. It's got a sequel.
Sorry, did it?
Oh yeah, they brought. Yeah, you remember that? They brought back the Iconian game.
You're right.
In DS9. Yeah, it's great. That's a really cool episode. Anyway. But I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I was just saying, like, all the cybernetic implants and stuff that people are having that you.
Yeah,
does anybody else in Star Trek have cybernetic implants besides Geordi's visor?
Yeah, so again, we don't want to get too heavy in the continuity issues, because it doesn't care about that stuff. It's asking you to remember what you remember, but to throw away what they don't want you to know. All in the name of creative license. Right. The issue is, as I always say, this was Enterprise's big problem. Are we extrapolating from now, or are we extrapolating from the 60s again? Right. And this, of course, is just like 09 Star Trek, trying to push forward from the technologies we have now, but it's also like kind of stuck with certain things that it thinks it has to limit, so that it looks like the 23rd century. So, for example, it's got to pretend like we've never seen a cloaking device before. This can't match with Enterprise because the Suliban's had a way more complex and intricate cloak that was biology-based than what the Romulans have. But anyway, we have to pretend like we've never seen a cloaking device before, but sight-to-sight beaming is really easy.
Right.
You know, so you have to forget everything you know, but then I wonder why they make certain choices just to make it look like the 23rd. If they're starting over completely, why do they have to act like it's a big deal that the Romulans have cloaking device or the Klingons have cloaking device?
Essentially, like the based on like everything and like just me processing and what you're saying about how selective it's being with its own continuity, I have finally nailed how I feel. This is the X-Men apocalypse of TV.
Sure.
It made me feel like the exact same way. I finally have like gone back in my brain and found the same feeling. It's X-Men Apocalypse all over again.
It seems like it's made for, I think I forgot the target demographic, which is people that watched Star Trek growing up and never went back to it.
Right.
And kind of remember it. That is the target demographic of this show, which was also the target demographic of 09.
Right. It's even more cynical than that because it's like people who maybe were familiar with the original series and that's all.
I don't think so because I think most people that watch this will have no idea who Sarek is. I think most casual viewers that come in are not going to know who that is.
Well, he's a Force ghost now.
And they don't say Spock, so they don't know.
Again, it's a lot of these choices are super counterintuitive because the whole reason the show got greenlit in the first place was to sell a streaming platform.
Right.
Wouldn't you try to make it the easiest thing to sit down and watch if you've never seen Star Trek before?
Well, it's what I mean.
Which again, go forward.
Right.
Just go forward.
Why would you set it in the middle of all this stuff where there's all this history?
Yeah, and it keeps doing these really deep pull reference drops where, like, you have to think about the Geneva Accords in the third episode, which I thought was kind of a cool line, where it's like, guys, I can hear myself in my headphones, so if, I don't know whose mic it is, but okay, all right, we're good now. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. Anyway, but yeah, the name drop where she's like the Geneva Accords from 1928 or whatever, and then
2152.
2155, which is Romulan War, and that's kind of interesting. But the problem is, I also don't know if they did that on purpose because I don't know what counts yet, and I'm hoping I get more of a sense of some of that as we move forward. But
and you said the Romulan War was all ship-to-ship combat, so what does the Geneva Convention do with that?
But maybe it wasn't in this universe. We don't know. And then the spore transporter thing takes us to Romulus. So maybe they know what Romulans look like. Like, it's just, I don't know where I stand with any of this. So I want to try to forget everything I know, but it's asking me to be a Star Trek fan.
I was almost wondering.
Yes. It's asking you to be
Go ahead.
It's asking you to be a Star Trek fan while forgetting everything you know about Star Trek. And then going, but remember this really cool stuff. Well,
yeah, like it's exhausting.
You can't do it like that. And if you wanted to retcon some stuff, you could.
Just let me know where I stand.
But
just don't in the show tell me it's prime continuity. That's all I'm asking for.
Because there's no possibilities of prime continuity Klingon. Like there is no teardown for this. You cannot get to the end of this and it makes any sense.
But then if you're not prime continuity, what is the point of setting it in this period? Okay, we're going to wind up in a causality.
They have to do that for IP.
How long before Cap gets up on the table and yells, "Don't tell me it," and I was there.
I was Spock!
So I was wondering if, I don't know if this is true or not, but if one of the reasons why they didn't set it after Voyager and Nemesis had to do with the legal issues that Alexi was talking about with who owns what copyright.
Oh, that gets really complicated because of the ways in which 09 is a sequel to television.
Yeah.
Yes. And there are certain things that they have to be very cautious of. However, they could have very easily set it after even Nemesis, or ignore the movies in its entirety, and just go.
Right, but yeah, the thing is, there's no reason you couldn't keep it in Prime and simply say Romulus didn't explode. Like that's the only thing you have that you would be stuck with in that case. Let me get this point in here real quick because I'm afraid I won't have another.
What you say is the Romulans are gone. Just don't have Romulans.
Just don't. Yeah, sure.
You don't have to say Red Matter or anything. Like just the Romulans don't exist anymore.
Well, that would be tough. I mean, like you would want a reason because the Romulans are such a big deal and they're so important to the galactic politics. But right, but well, anyway, regardless of that, my other big question for setting it in the past is why would you get rid of the opportunity to still use some actors from 24th century stuff while they're still with us?
Right.
Like, it's like such a huge missed opportunity. If this doesn't go anthology and we're stuck with Star Trek Discovery for and it succeeds and it gets a number of seasons, we're never going to get to see any of those guys play those roles again.
Unless they have another series.
Unless they do some parallel series that's set, in some other continuity or whatever. But yeah, so anyway, I wanted to get that point out there while I was thinking about it.
Well, also, if they were stuck with the aesthetic, if they were going to go with the 1960s aesthetic of Star Trek, there are also ways that they could make it mesh and make it look cool. There have been people who've done that. And I am not an Alec Peters apologist by any stretch of any imagination. But there are ways that this could have been done. In fact, people have shown you a roadmap as to how to do it.
Well, and also the problem isn't for me really the aesthetic. I can live with that.
I have an issue with some of the technology. I have an issue with the holograms, things like that.
Sure, but just the basic aesthetic of it. The fact that it doesn't look like cardboard sets or whatever, like it doesn't have to. That's fine. I don't care. I mean, we already had to live with that with the Abrams continuity, where we were basically told we went back in time and we're in the same universe, but we've reset it, except all the technology is different. Like, we already have that problem.
But can I argue that right now retro is super in, and doing a show, I'm not saying it to the cardboard sets, but look at Rogue One. They have 70s haircuts.
Yeah, nobody's making fun of it.
Look at Force Awakens, where their technology looks like
and to Alexi's point, if you go back to the aesthetic of something similar to the aesthetic of the Cage without it looking quite that drab, the Cage is a really is a really scary standalone movie. You know what I mean? Like you can tell that that's kind of what we're going back and looking at. Yeah, you could have done that aesthetic.
Right. You could have, and also and people are ignoring. We're mentioning hopeful optimism future. We're all ignoring the elephant in the room, which is the Orville, which in certain ways is more Star Trek in many ways than, or certainly next gen, than this is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not ignoring that. We've already made that point. And when we reviewed the Orville, we were wondering, like, is Orville going to feel more like Star Trek than this show?
There's a Star Trek show on right now. It is called the Orville.
Yeah,
it's not a great show, but it's the Star Trek show.
And ironically, made all the beats in its pilot that are expected. I mean, in a Star Trek show, because you had I'm meeting the crew. These are the characters. These are the beats of these characters, and so on. You have,
and it doesn't have to follow a formula or anything. I don't want to say that.
Well, it doesn't have to follow a formula, but there's certain tropes. I mean, and the tropes of meeting the crew in space opera, it goes all the way back to Doc E.E. Smith. Okay,
right, but the thing is,
I mean, I'll put it this way: everything from Walter Harrington, Star Trek, Star Wars. You meet your team. Oh, this is your team. This is who you have.
Right, but Alexi, we did that. We just did it in our second pilot. I mean, I think it's hilarious that Discovery intentionally made 2 pilots when TOS set an unprecedented record by being forced to make 2 pilots.
Yes.
I think that's hilarious. I'm sorry, Adam. We stepped all over you, buddy.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Sorry, man.
Do you remember what you were saying?
I don't remember.
Okay, we'll see if it comes back to you. I apologize. Alden, throw us out another topic, sir.
I will throw in one humorous comment before we get to the question.
Your microphone's doing that crazy buzzy thing that it did last time we had you on. And I don't know what it's doing, but that's difficult.
Is it better now?
It's not crazy. It's
it's still. he's just being a robot. Alden.
How about now?
Yeah, there you go.
Why are you like this? Like I don't know. I'm about to have a serious talk with this microphone later. So
you should have done it before the show. You should have talked to that microphone before the show.
I should have told him. I said, "There's going to be a lot of talking. You're going to have to wait. Just relax." So a lot of people being pretty shocked that Seth MacFarlane managed to make a better show than this. So
I don't want to say it's better.
It's not better made.
Yeah, well, it says Seth MacFarlane did it better. Good God, I can't believe I said that.
Yeah.
Nathan Snyder, I'm not a fan of the Orville, but it was better than Discovery.
I mean,
but as for questions, there was one that I didn't want to skip over from earlier. Trying to find the names. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Phil Kelton. I'm going to ask this as apolitically as possible. With Star Trek, I'll add on to this question a little bit. With Star Trek, always wanted to explore ideas, of our real world, as good sci-fi does. Did you guys feel like this was a blatant commentary on the current right and left wing politics war, especially with the Klingons saying they're trying to change us, silence us? A couple people have commented on that.
Here's the thing. I thought of that, but I don't want to read too far into it because I still don't know, if that's not just stuff that guy's saying. Sort of like, is Dark Knight Rises actually a commentary on anything, or is Bane just using the status quo against people? Now, it could be that that's what it is, but the problem is it's set in the future, and we don't know what the status quo is, so it doesn't really say anything about us, if that's the case.
Right, and we also don't know because the show took 2 years to come to series, so we don't know how when that episode.
That's a good point.
And that's the read I originally had of it.
Yeah.
When we watched that pilot. But one, I refuse to believe that Hollywood would make a show where, because Federation is not the good guys. We're not completely the good guys, and I refuse to believe that Hollywood would make a show that casts what the Klingons would represent in that metaphor in any positive light because they hate them. So
that's an interesting.
That would be really impressive if that's what they were doing, but I don't think it is.
Like for Hollywood to look at the right and say there's validity there is very not Hollywood.
Yes. That's not Hollywood, especially not right now. And
that's an understatement. I mean,
I also don't know whose side the show takes sometimes, because Burnham seems to be kind of a different person, sometimes even scene to scene. So first episode, she's all, it's important to go against your principles when lives are in the balance. And then the second, the third episode, however you want to look at it, the second pilot, because I'm going to call it that. That's what it is. She says the exact opposite, even though that's the whole reason Lorca wanted her in the first place. So I don't know that this show is saying anything, because I don't know if it even understands its own characters half the time.
James, I want to get into that because actually there was a part, despite my hatred of the pilot, the third episode, there's a point where Burnham has the temerity to lecture Lorca, like, I am a Starfleet officer, and how dare you ask me to go against my principles? And so, you committed mutiny, and you.
Is that your Burnham impression? She doesn't have an accent. I don't know what you're doing. What is that voice?
No, just the pomposity of it. She gets like incredibly pompous.
I know. I'm sorry.
And she gets so like full of herself that I would want to actually, like, if I was Lorca, I'd slap her. Like, not that I would slap a woman, but just like, wait, you committed assault against your captain in a time of crisis that may or may not have precipitated your crew getting killed.
Anytime we talk about Michael, we ignore that completely and just keep talking about how she's the best officer Starfleet has ever had.
I mean, and then at the end,
here's the thing. I'm not saying it was a mistake and there were consequences for that mistake, but then at the same time, I don't know if the show is saying that what she did was necessary.
But I'll also point out that
I don't know if the show's on her side or not, or I think she has to grow.
And that's why I can't read the politics.
But this is also the same character who said, well, we can't kill him. If we kill him, we make him a martyr. Then they beam over there, and she switches the phaser from stun to kill and shoots the bloke in the back.
Well, that's because he killed her captain. Like, that was an emotional response.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter.
But that does seem to be her immediate thing. Anytime there's any crisis, is emotional response. She's the worst Vulcan trained person ever.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how the whole Vulcan training thing fits in yet. Like that's not informing her character.
She certainly is not logical.
But if that is if those are your actions, you have lost all moral high ground to turn to this guy and go, you're creating weapons. You're creating weapons of mass destruction. And
and again, that's why you have to ignore the pilot, because it wants us to think that the extreme actions she takes are unusual, and that's not how she usually is, because she's dealing with Klingons, and that makes her more emotional because they killed her parents, because we're going there. And the thing is, I don't get a good sense of what she was like for those 7 years she was on that ship, and I don't feel like she has any chemistry with her captain. I think it's really interesting, by the way, that they chose that number, 7 years. 3 of our 5 previous Star Trek shows ran for 7 years, and the social dynamic on a starship after 7 seasons of television is very different from what we saw here. These people don't feel like they've known each other for any amount of time, and I don't buy, even with the mutiny, that her captain would turn on her the way she does. I feel like you put her in the brig and be disappointed and be really upset with her and all of that, but I don't see that she would have. There would be more of a sense of understanding, except what she did was crazy, but only because the script said it had to be.
Well, and what's weird from first pilot to second pilot is that her captain tells her, like, I thought you were ready for command. I guess I didn't know you. We're supposed to believe that this is a momentary lapse in judgment.
Right.
This is just how she is.
Yeah.
She immediately gets on a ship where she is a prisoner, does not want to be involved, and goes, hey, what's in that room? I'm going to break out of my room and break into this hidden room I'm not allowed in. Immediately. That's just how she is. It's not a lapse in judgment. That is her character.
With the Spaceball security system.
Yeah.
With the Spaceball security system, don't forget
it's
that.
Spaceballs. Spaceballs does the breath.
Oh, it does!
Spaceballs does the breathalyzer.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, did they just crib from Spaceballs?
That makes me happy. I like it more now.
Cribbed
So
it.
guys, we are already past an hour, believe it or not. I don't know how that happened, but I guess you get 5 people on a panel, and we all have a lot to say. So if you guys are okay going for at least another half an hour, we'll continue this.
I'm
Is
game.
everybody
Good
good?
to go.
Is everybody game? Okay. Alden, let's try to go a little bit more rapid fire if such a thing is possible.
It's not his fault. Don't
Never
put this
say
on
that.
him. This is our fault.
I'm not putting it on him. But Alden, go ahead and give us another question. We're going to attempt to go a little bit more lickety-split, but I should never say that, because this will be the point where we spend 20 minutes on one topic. Go ahead.
I want to believe that this can be a quick one. However, we'll see. From McCaffrey, how do Discovery's first 3 episodes compare to Enterprise's first 3? Comparing beginnings.
Well, it's lopsided because... Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I just saw the pilot for Enterprise not too long ago, so I can exactly compare those. Enterprise's pilot is better than Discovery's pilot.
Right.
It's more engaging.
But Enterprise's second episode is one of the worst episodes of Star Trek.
Okay, that's fine. But I'm just saying, I just had a really clean, pure experience of seeing the Enterprise pilot.
In the cave, and T'Pol gets like brainwashed by like some kind of entity thing, and everybody's acting weird, and it's bad.
So I can say, without argument and without bias, Enterprise's pilot is way better than Discovery's pilot.
It was actually psychotropic drugs. There was actually no entity there.
I thought there was an entity. Well, I hate that episode, so I don't remember. I'm pretty sure that was the one. Whatever.
I will point out the one thing that this does better than Enterprise's second
it looks
episode.
great.
It doesn't have a theme song?
Not even that. Actually,
I'm sorry, Alexi. Go ahead.
One thing that this did convey, and it was great, all 3 episodes, that space was scary again, space is risky again, and excuse me, space is scary again, it's risky again, and what they are doing, exploring on the frontier, is amazingly dangerous. They actually were able to convey that very well, and I liked that. I liked the fact that you had that sense of they're out there alone, they're out there by themselves.
I'm with you, Alexi. That's great. If it was, I can hear myself in my headphones again. If it was, in continuity or it was just, its own thing, but it was super consistent, I feel like I could give it more points for that. The problem is, to Eric's point earlier, isn't every really dark, relentless science fiction show that's on TV also about how scary space is? Like it's inherent in the premise. Of course it has that.
And I would like that more if this was a show about exploration. It's not. It's a war show.
But again, I will give the 3rd episode props for being about the fact that Starfleet should be about that, and it doesn't get to right now. And something the show does get that Beyond didn't is that Starfleet is both military and exploration based.
Well,
it has to be.
What would be fascinating is if the show is commenting on itself and its own production cycle and how they wanted to make a show about exploration, the studio wanted to make them make an action show, and so they're talking about themselves.
Technology, so that the next episode, the next season, we just tell a story and not deconstruct our own really bizarre thing.
Star Trek Multiversity.
Multiversity.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that moving forward we will just be in a different universe every time.
But they'll all say their prime continuity.
Right. But they'll all clearly not even keep track of each other and be in a yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm curious to see if it's Section 31 still. I'm genuinely curious about that.
You know what? I want to be curious about that, but of course they have to exist in this world.
Are they tied to the black badges?
We actually have that exact question literally right now. Literally, like 60 seconds ago, it popped in. Do the black badges on the armed crew members indicate that this is all some sort of Section 31 clandestine ship?
It's entirely...
I think that's possible. I don't know how super interesting that is, given that Starfleet already seems more, well, I almost said Starfleet itself seems more morally ambiguous. To be fair, I think I'm just reading into the tone of the show, because JoJo wasn't that way. She tried to play everything completely by the book and bought into Starfleet's philosophy to the letter, and this guy Lorca is being played as an anomaly and a really unusual character.
But don't forget that when we see her trial, the Starfleet commanders are lit like
It's Krypton.
It's Krypton. It's the scary...
Guilty. Yeah, she should have had hula hoops around her.
Hula hoops around her, and I mean, honestly, I would be genuinely surprised if Lorca actually they're trying to do if they're trying to make him look more suspicious and more mysterious than actually he is.
Yeah, that could be a red herring.
He could be a red herring. I mean, they could be doing a Supergirl season 1 on us, where you thought. You thought John Jones was some sort of
manhunter
creature. I would love.
But she says he's expensive, so he's either going to get court-martialed or he's going to die in an epic sacrifice.
Well, can I throw out my theory on what I think is going to happen at the end of the show?
Yes, because I'm with you. I think you're right.
Okay, so what I think is going to happen is that at the end of this show, Michael's going to mutiny again, but it's actually going to be for the right reasons, because he's going to do something that's way too far. And that's going to be her character arc, is mutinying, but for the right reasons, it's going to be okay this time. Because this time the captain will actually be doing something wrong. That's where I think it's going with him.
She'll be vindicated for doing another mutiny.
Yeah.
Well, do we even know what her rank is on the ship yet? Do we know, is she first officer? Did, Saru get, suddenly
I would imagine she'd be a science officer, right? If she has any rank at all.
So she hasn't gotten a rank yet. She was just offered a position. What I'm hoping happens is that she starts off as a crewman and has to work her way all the way up. I think it would be really strange if she got a major bridge crew role, Eric. They can't just make her science officer. I think you would be.
She's a chief science officer, but she could be a science officer, couldn't she?
Yeah. I mean that could be the department she's in, but she can't be the head of anything.
No.
Risking another mutiny, I think. That would be because nobody likes that she's there in the first place. I think they'll probably play it kind of like a 7 of 9 thing, where she doesn't really have. If she has an official rank, it'll be really low. Maybe she won't have an official rank, but she ends up doing everything because she's brilliant at everything.
She's the best fighter. She's the best thinker. She's the best at following orders.
Maybe Michael will take some of the heat off of Ray. That way, I can stop talking about that.
The whole Mary Sue thing, and it's interesting that I'm not seeing people complain that she's a Mary Sue.
And I didn't notice it until really watching the third episode the second time.
Okay.
I saw it.
I was just like, oh, she's just the best at everything.
I saw some people comment on Mary Sue qualities. I would point out that I mean, I wouldn't even go with the Mary Sue qualities as so much as she's just a completely unlikable character. This is a person who...
Yeah, my issue is, and they're compensating, trying to make you like her more because they're like, well, she's good at everything and she's really important.
My issue isn't like the Mary Sue thing. It's that they sold this as a show that wasn't about the perfect main character. And she's such a flawed person. She's good at everything. Stop saying she's a flawed human being. She's not. She's she's the best at everything.
Yeah, one of the things Fuller was saying was really cool about the show is that it's not about the captain this time, and that it's just about a crew member that's on the ship. But like, she starts off as a first officer that almost gets a command. Like, that's not nearly as interesting as what they pitched. Or when I say interesting, I mean unusual and different.
Yeah, you're not seeing Star Trek through the eyes of O'Brien. You're seeing Star Trek through the eyes of Riker.
We're not seeing, we're not seeing the below decks. We're not seeing the below decks from TNG.
But I feel like they sold a show that was through the eyes of O'Brien, and it's not that show.
No, it's not. Now, I would say this, that they're trying to shill her as the bestest character ever. I don't buy it. I don't buy her moral choices. I don't think she has a moral center. And the fact that, like, Sarek kind of ditched his own son for her kind of really, like, wow.
Where is Spock?
We got a mention that he was raised with her, and that's all we know.
That's all we've
It's weird that he would never bring that up.
But also remember, this is 2 years after the
yeah. But again, it's assuming that you can count anything that's ever happened. And I mean, I guess moving forward, hopefully we'll find out if any of that stuff counts, because like he should be. Okay, so it's weird that if you only have I just thought of this. If you only have one Vulcan officer in Starfleet, Spock would come up when she's walking around.
Yeah.
Especially if they were like.
Because the guy says, I thought you were Vulcan. Wouldn't that be a big deal if Spock's supposed to be the first Vulcan officer?
Yeah.
Why would he just assume she's Vulcan?
Yeah.
But then they have that. You remember in the episode with the space amoeba?
Yeah.
They talk. The ship that was lost was all Vulcan.
Right, but it wasn't a Starfleet ship. It was a Federation ship.
Starfleet ship. I think that was a.
It was a Vulcan ship. Yeah.
Okay.
Or at least I think that was the idea. But like, and also keep in mind that TOS will have intercontinuity issues just because you had a lot of different writers working with the series Bible that didn't necessarily see previous episodes. So that kind of thing can happen. But we're told numerous times that Spock is supposed to be the first Vulcan officer, and I mean it's a big deal and really unusual that he would leave or not go to the Science Academy and do Starfleet instead. Right. But then Enterprise, it makes that all real fishy with having T'Pol get a commission and all of that. Right. And so we've already kind of messed with that. This acts like there's just Vulcans in Starfleet, but again, I kind of have to forget everything. Right. I guess. Yeah. Alden, throw us some more questions, sir.
Here is a humorous question. This is a what-if scenario for you all. If you had to swap the current Discovery showrunner for another showrunner, would you do it? Mind you, now, here's why I didn't give you a choice. You might get either Brian Fuller, Greg Berlanti, or Scott Buck. Do you do it? Go.
No, leave it just the way it is. If Scott Buck even has a 10% chance of ever touching Star Trek.
Wait. The question is, like, would you switch it out and it's a roulette?
It's a roulette.
Might get one of those?
Yeah.
Oh, but we might get Fuller.
No.
Do it. You might get Fuller.
It's not worth it. Especially because I'm not convinced that. I love Fuller from things I've seen before, but I'm not convinced that some of the big issues aren't his fault.
He said he wanted to make it darker than it is, I heard.
That's weird, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to dog on him. We don't know how much of this show is.
But I do know that he hates the aesthetics. And none of that would be an issue.
Okay. Well, but
except for the Klingons. The Klingons are him.
If there's a 10% chance of Scott Buck ever touching this show, look, I liked that third episode enough to keep watching, and I'm intrigued for the next episode. So no, leave it just the way it is.
The only way I would change
it out of the skid.
Nicholas Meyer. I want Nicholas Meyer.
It's going to be very interesting to see his episodes.
I want Nicholas Meyer as the showrunner.
Because he's writing on the show, and he's listed as a consulting producer. And I originally he was supposed to write scripts. I'm assuming he's still doing that. And I saw an interview with him where he was really excited to get to work and write scripts. So
the question is honestly how much control and how much he is involved in the operations of the show. There's a difference between you writing an episode and you writing a show.
That's why it's just consulting. They put that on there so that he can't be like, no, I have some say. No, he doesn't.
Well, and who is the showrunner? Because we've got the executive producers and like the created by, and it's Brian Fuller, Kurtzman. Okay.
Is that her name? I don't know.
Okay, because the three big names I kept seeing were Fuller, Kurtzman, and Akiva Goldsman. There's no way any of them are running this show. So I wasn't sure
Here's
who was
the thing.
actually running the show.
Despite my issues, even with that third episode and what it looks like the show, the overall kind of tone of the show is, I think it does have the potential to, even if it's not what I want, turn into a really, really smart show.
Yeah.
I really do.
I think
it might not
has
be Star Trek, but I think it could turn into a really smart show. I think the crews that worked on that pilot and this third episode
And the second pilot?
are different and clashing, and that third episode is trying to damage control what they did with that pilot.
That's possible because
That's entirely
the problem is when the pilot came out, everyone was like, "Well, just give it a chance. Star Trek never starts great. Like let's just see how it goes." I'm like, this feels almost unsalvageable. But then that third episode, if that was the pilot, I would totally understand. I'd be like, okay, so it's not exactly what I want. It's not great, but I can see some potential here. And it's really weird back to back.
That opening scene where they tractor beam her.
It's a great introduction to a ship.
Yeah, it's great.
Yes, that looked beautiful. Especially considering the design things that are going on with Discovery. That I look at.
Well, they're allowed to do that because the Klingons don't fly those anymore. They fly something completely else.
It just looks ugly. It just
looks like they're made out of asteroids.
It was a bad idea in the 70s, and
it's a
but that makes it a good idea now.
The way they're shooting it looks really pretty, but then if you take all the lighting effects off of it, it's really strange. Yeah.
It's like somebody took a Frisbee and I don't know what else and just jammed it all together.
Yeah, so I mean, Eric's right. Like you can call that a Starfleet design if the Klingons don't have birds of prey,
because they clearly don't.
Yeah, but then it's also weird that it exists. That it exists in a world without birds of prey. So yeah.
Or if they do have birds of prey, they look like asteroids because that's what all their ships look like.
Yeah.
They look really weird.
Well, actually, they had the wing one that looked like an orb with wings attached to it. That might be.
What the heck was the whole
I
thing
have
with the
no
light?
idea.
I don't know. Okay, yeah, no. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Let's get into that a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. What does the torchbearer do? What is the point of him? What is the giant Klingon obelisk? Why is there a guy that has to guard it? Why is there only one person guarding it?
Now, when they said the body was a shell, they didn't care about bodies before.
Yeah,
ever.
And now they have caskets.
Yeah.
I don't honestly know what the point of that was. I'm sitting there. I'm like, the torch of Kalos. So are just Klingon ships hanging around? Like, I know we play fast and loose with physics, but Star Trek is supposed to be better at it than most out there. And I don't know what this is. I don't know what it's supposed to be doing. I don't know why it's there. I don't know what its purpose is. I mean,
but I don't know what the Klingons' plans are. So they keep talking about luring Starfleet there so they can manufacture this war. But all Burnham had to do was leave that thing well enough alone, and that never would have happened. So I guess the idea is supposed to be that what is his name? I just said it earlier. Takuvma. And he's dead now, but somehow or other I'll never forget him. See, but I'll never forget him because he's Takuvma the Unforgettable. I'll never forget him. Takuvma, I guess his idea is the Starfleet is predictable. I know what they'll do. They always. I don't like that they're trying to change us, and so I understand what they are. They're going to go explore this thing because they can't help it. So I guess the whole contrived idea, the whole convoluted idea is destroy a piece of our technology in order to lure them there to find this obelisk thing, and then we. But then the only thing that makes the worst happen is that she kills a Klingon guy. It's not like he would know that would happen.
So if she didn't kill him, would the war not start?
No.
I don't know.
Only if Starfleet and all of Starfleet as an aggregate drops about 40 IQ points. Because there's no way. I mean, first of all, you go in there, they're like, oh my God, they're Klingons. They're a warrior race. Okay. Rather than going, hi, you're in our territory. Don't come here. Why don't you go, guys, we killed your guy. Whoopsie. Our bad.
Sorry, that was self-defense. We won't tell you what her background was, so you can argue about revenge. But
Giorgio, Michelle Yeoh's character, comes in and goes like, by the way, you're super warlike, but this is our territory. Like, that's not a challenge. Like, think about what you're saying and use, well, diplomacy, since Starfleet is big on diplomacy. And then why don't we go, okay, this is the edge of Federation space. We're going to leave for just a little bit. You guys, good luck with, there's nothing important here. It's a binary star system.
We were about to leave anyway.
Yeah, when the Klingons show up, you just apologize because you killed that guy, and then when they get hostile, you just leave.
Well, yeah, but then why do you bring in like 40 other ships? Why would you do that? Like, if it's an explosive situation, adding more people to an explosive situation is not going to make it better. It is going to, by definition, make it worse.
The whole Vulcan hello thing makes no sense because they could have just left. They're acting like they're trapped there and they have to do something. They could just leave.
Yeah, and how is the whole thing about making them respect us when her whole point is just we have to kill them before they kill us? Like, I don't know how that argument with Sarek even follows. Alexi, to your point a minute ago, Giorgio does bring up the fact that there are other planets in the area that are Federation planets, and they've got to make sure the Klingons don't go after them. Yeah, and okay, you've only got one ship. It would make sense to maybe bring in 2 or 3 to protect those planets, but not to create a line, not to create a front.
Precisely. Not only that, but I'll point out that that system has no value to you except as essentially a listening outpost of some sort. Move back to your planets. Okay, whatever the hell your problem is, good luck with that. You're manufacturing a fight on Takuvma's part, but it only works for Takuvma if you guys are really incredibly stupid about it.
Yeah, well, I guess luckily
they were.
Yeah, luckily they were. The other reason that third episode is a way better pilot is because these Klingons are much more interesting if they're mysterious and in the background and we don't know anything about them yet. And if you watch, and that's why I'm begging people, if you've not watched that pilot and you just listened to us rip it apart, don't watch it. Watch that third episode and just ignore. I mean, maybe moving forward we'll bring back some of that Klingon mumbo jumbo and you'll get stuck having to deal with it and watch it. But at least with just that what we're calling a second pilot, I was able to put that out of my mind and imagine that these Klingons are just mysterious and strange and we don't know what they're about. And I like the mystery of that, and I also like the mystery of just what's going on the ship with Black Alert and not letting us know about all that right away. And I thought the revelations about all that by the end were somewhat satisfying. Like, that felt like a real story to me. That was,
yeah, except for where it's set in the timeline.
Right,
I'm like, well, what is this?
But I'm glad you brought that up again, Eric, because then once I'm invested more in characters and I'm intrigued by the plot, I'm not caring as much about the continuity stuff.
That's fair.
I can live with that, whatever.
I don't know. The second he explained that, I'm like, so this has to have a teardown. Like, that's immediately where my mind goes is, well, this can't work.
It's the same thing as interspace beaming, which didn't have a teardown. Right. We just pretended it never existed.
We never know. It might not work. The Genesis project didn't work.
Well, and we just killed a whole ship of people over it.
Right.
I mean, we saw that it worked with a single person, but it might not work with a whole ship full of people. And it might be unstable. It might fall apart. And in fact, I think that's where that's going, where he's willing to risk it because he thinks that gives them such a tactical advantage. Right. But I think he's going to get a bunch of people killed with it.
Right.
Entirely possible.
I was going to mention, we mention how Giorgio kind of committed a war crime by sabotaging their body of that Klingon.
Sabotaging the body?
When she put the bomb on the corpse, that's kind of...
I missed that.
Is that a war crime? That's when they do this. When they shuttle over.
That thing went up on the...
in the first pilot.
I guess she didn't read the Geneva Convention. Yeah. That's being brought up later. But,
well, she just assumed that they were regular Klingons and the body wasn't important, so they wouldn't care.
Yeah.
She didn't know that these are different Klingons. It's like a really sacred thing.
The whole thing was they're trying to get it on the ship.
Let's try to get a couple more questions in here if we can. Go ahead, Alden. Anything else interesting that people are asking us about that we haven't hit yet?
The Everything Geek asks, who do you believe is the better Sarek, 2009's or Discovery's?
Well, 09, I guess so far. This guy's not Sarek. I don't know who he is. I don't know anything about him yet. He's throwing out random weird platitudes in a script that is terrible, and we didn't get to see him in 3. So
I'm pretty sure he's racked with Bandai syndrome. That's my explanation for what's going on.
2009 Sarek is at least not a Force
I'm
ghost.
so glad you watched TNG.
Yeah,
make that joke. Yeah.
2009 Sarek is not a space is not a Force ghost, so you got to go with him. I mean,
did we have to do something that incredibly ridiculous and cheesy with the intra-space mind melding? See,
that's part of his contract, but again, Spock doesn't.
They're pulling all the ridiculous stuff that they did in the Abrams movies without the fun. That's what they're doing.
Well, that's not how the contract's supposed to work. First of all, I mean, that's your soul. So what? It's like, like Space Cthulhu? Jesus Christ. I mean, what is he? Like,
well, he gave us phylactery to her.
What is happening? The second I was like, okay, she's...
Alexi, obviously that was just a contrivance so that we could have that scene, which was unnecessary. You didn't need that.
And her have it as a, oxygen-deprived hallucination. And it makes more sense.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that scene. I want to mention that scene. How absurd that is in how dark this show is. That the entire section of the ship is gone except for where she is.
The cell.
The cell! The cell is fine! It's a prison, so there must be other cells there. So, you can't say, well, the cell was shielded. There were other cells.
Maybe the force still wasn't turned on in the other cell.
I don't care. It went through the ship, but the prison shield is strong enough. That was the dumbest thing in a show taking itself so seriously.
Yeah.
Too seriously.
What else do you have for us, sir?
I'm trying to get the name. Everything Geek also asks, do you guys believe that this could be some sort of prequel or tie-in to the Mirror Universe?
No, because I think we know for sure that they're going to do their own Mirror Universe.
But it's going to be really light and fun, and everyone's going to be
somebody in the comments earlier, it might have been him again. Somebody else in the comments earlier was like, gee, I wonder what this Mirror Universe would be like. Well, we're going to get to find out, and it'll be really funny to see a way super darker
cardboard sets.
I could make
It'll either be like a nice place where people get along and have respect for other people.
It'll just look like TOS.
Or it'll be like Mad Max in space. Like that's the only way you can go dark.
The cast and crew of Star Trek continues to shoot those segments.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea that we're in the Mirror Universe and in their version
of it. That would be an amazing way to do prime
prime continuity.
Yeah, it isn't prime continuity, but it's the Mirror Universe.
Or it's another universe that's like the Mirror. Because, this can't be Mirror Universe because the Empire doesn't exist. But
what if it's the Mirror Universe of the Mirror Universe?
You blew my mind, buddy. Wow. In the comics, the Abrams verse has its own Mirror Universe, and it is a different Mirror Universe from the Prime one, because I've said this before. That continuity comes right out and says that Ambassador Spock went back in time and to a parallel universe, as opposed to the writing over it, because
so it is the Mirror Kelvin universe.
Yes. It'll be interesting to see if the comics, if IDW's Discovery Comics, because they're going to make them, are going to try to fix things that don't work in the show, like they attempted it with the Abrams verse. I don't know what you do.
Apparently,
trying to fit it together, but
one of the main writers is supervising that, kind of like how Kurtzman supervised Countdown.
Yeah.
Wow. I honestly. It would make a lot more sense if that's the case, but I can't give this show that much credit. Not yet.
What is that is an alternate universe? Yeah, me neither.
They might be trying to be clever. They might be trying, maybe the spore technology is actually transferring them from universe to universe or something like that. I've heard those theories and so on.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the thing.
That's how they're doing the anthology series.
You have to do something out the gate to alert those of us that are in the know with Star Trek that what you're watching is not the real Star Trek universe. You
like
have
if
to
the
throw us a
Klingons were
bone.
completely different, or like it didn't match up with any continuity, like those kinds of bones.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that I don't trust it.
I cannot say.
You could come up with a way
I've
to
heard
make
those
it
theories.
clear, I think.
I'm intrigued by those theories, but I don't trust the show to be able to pull that off.
It also doesn't undo the bad writing. It doesn't make anything that's happened any less contrived.
And it doesn't match with what the producers were saying before the show, because they keep swearing up and down that it's kind of, at the very least it's supposed to be ambiguous.
I heard that it was prime continuity, but it was supposed to be visually ambiguous so that people who saw those movies could come watch would want to go watch it.
Yeah, so if you're saying that, it's not on purpose, and you might go there later because again, it might be a damage control situation, but they can't have started with that idea.
And also, just like a question, like obviously for you guys being hardcore fans, is twists and leaving the viewer out of it in the fabric of Star Trek at all?
Not
like
really.
any other
Based on the
series?
episode, we do that kind of thing every now and again, but it's not our standard way of telling stories.
Yeah,
No.
and you wouldn't have built a season on it, let alone a series.
Yeah.
No,
most Star Trek.
that's actually a really good point.
Star Trek is purely episodic television.
Yeah.
I would say the only series that was, frankly, fully serialized would be DS9.
Well, and even that's not fully serialized. And once you got to Enterprise, once you got to season 3 Enterprise, it was as serialized as DS9 was. Enterprise also went to that place.
That's fair.
The Xindi War has one and done episodes just like the Dominion War did. Apparently in Star Trek we only do this with wars. We only know how to do serialized ongoing storytelling if there's a giant battle happening.
I will say, given this episode and given the preview for next episode, it does look like this show might be a little bit more episodic than I would have thought it would be.
Yeah, because we did kind of tell one story here.
Yeah, and it looks like the next episode's going to be like that. Like, it looks like it might be a little episodic, but with an overarching story.
So that's good.
Yeah, I like that.
He wanted it. They wanted it to be more episodic, and he wanted it to be more serialized. So.
I can see
Fuller
the
does
value
tend to
in
make
both.
shows like that.
I can see the value in both. I'm not saying it's not Star Trek.
But Fuller also wanted it to be an
episodes.
anthology show, and if you're going to do an anthology show, it makes sense to tell a story over one
Right,
season.
because you just make it a 13-hour episode, and that's a great idea. Oh, then let's do 2 more.
Okay, so Mind the Gap asks, if you had some sort of button that could rewrite reality and lets you change one thing about Discovery thus far, what would each of you change?
Make Burnham a decent human being.
Brian Fuller never left the show.
25th Century.
Oh, that's a better one.
Oh, that's a better one. That's better.
Yeah, after Nemesis. That's what I do.
Post Nemesis. Yeah. I'll buy that one.
But now you have to say something different because you can't have
That's
mine.
still yours.
Oh, all right. What else you got?
On that.
Make the Klingons look like
Everyone are talking cats.
But I'm okay with the Klingons looking
Or
ridiculous if it's
velociraptors.
in the 25th
Everyone's
century.
velociraptors?
I'm still not okay with them looking ridiculous.
Yes.
I don't want them to look ridiculous.
Here's the thing. I would know where I see. I don't mind them as much as you do. I would know where I stood with the show more, Eric, if everyone was a Velociraptor. There's no making that prime continuity. There's no way to set that up.
No, it's just creative license. It's prime continuity. It's
It's
just creative
already
license.
preposterous that in Enterprise everybody remembers the Dominion, the Xindi War, even though it never happened, and then apparently forward no one ever mentions it. But I feel like Velociraptors you couldn't get away with. I feel like at some point someone would have to say, remember that like 5-year stretch, that 5-year mission where everyone was Velociraptors?
I can guarantee you, though, that CBS All Access would skyrocket if the Velociraptors. They would not only have their biggest month ever, they would be astronomical growth. It would be incredible.
Actually, I'd say this. Whoever's writing the Klingons, read the book first. It's Klingon Art of War by Keith D. Candido. He actually makes really good cultural reference to Klingons, and he does a great job on it. And I'm taking my old one of making Burnham a decent human being back because that's a tough order. But make the Klingons more compelling. You had an interesting culture with the Klingons going from TNG all the way to Voyager and DS9 and so on.
There's just no reason to change it. Yeah, I mean, Voyager jumped the shark with it some, but if you're... I don't know, like I still think the 25th century thing fixes that, because these Klingons are immediately fascinating if you set it later.
If they've evolved into it, absolutely.
Yeah, that's really cool.
If you're like, what happened to take them from that to this? Because these guys don't care about honor. These guys will make a peace pact and then immediately fire.
They under a flag of truce, they rammed a ship. That's not by any definition honorable.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Actually, if the Klingons were the guys who decided to detonate their warp core, that would have been more Klingon. Ironically, the Federation was more Klingon-esque, and we're taking you with us, than the Klingons were. If that makes sense.
Let's get another question.
Well, the most recent question in the chat here is about the Klingons' appearance specifically. If you guys had an opinion on the actual appearance, which I guess we've sort of touched on.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
I'm somewhat indifferent.
Looking for final question.
Hey, can I say that the set was intricate and beautiful, and like for where the Klingons were, like that whole thing was really cool.
I don't know what I was looking at. Is this a ship?
Yeah.
Is this?
No, I don't either.
It was an Egyptian cave.
Is it like? What am I looking at?
The Klingon pyramid.
I mean, am I looking at space? What am I looking at? And I would like to know. We've had races in Star Trek where we don't know what their technology really does, but by looking at it, we can figure it out. I didn't get any sense that this was actually anything technological other than an asteroid in this thing.
Initially, on first viewing, for a while, I thought they were inside the obelisk, and then I was like, oh, wait, no, that's not where they are. Eric, you know how you and I were kind of complaining that the Klingon names aren't very Klingon?
Yeah.
Takuvma, that's like an Egyptian kind of name, right? Like, I'm telling you, they're going Egyptian with the Klingons.
What was the other one? What was the one you were complaining about? The red.
Oh my god!
Rejak?
Oh my god! There's a Klingon named Rejak, and that's the best. What? Okay, so it's at least in the subtitles,
Rejak.
It's not spelled the same way. I'm assuming this is not actually Rejak, but it's just leaving out the D. It's really close. So there is a possibility. People that are not familiar with this know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to set it up like this without even telling you anything about that episode that this comes from, because it's hilarious. There is a slight possibility that the Klingon that Burnham kills on the outside of the obelisk is Jack the Ripper. It's possible.
And it's a serial killer.
Yes, and goes around to all kinds of different planets being Jack the Ripper. And that means, ladies and gentlemen, at some point, that Klingon sounded like Piglet.
Piglet, yeah.
And that's, anyway, Wolf in the Fold, look it up.
I'm definitely going to have to look that up.
Thank you, whoever brought up Rejak. I totally forgot to bring that up.
And is killed by giving him essentially laughing gas in a hypo spray.
We talked about the...
I want to see that so much! I want to see Joker in the Star Trek universe just going around giving people hypo sprays.
We talked about that.
He's got a comm badge that shoots acid.
We talked about the Klingon designs. We talked about the actual Federation Starfleet designs.
Yeah, sure.
They're kind of bland, and I wish they were different colored. I understand that there is the gold stripes and the silver stripes, but I need more differentiation between different...
It's weird because it feels like they're kind of trying to do the Cage model thing, but it doesn't look anything like that, so I don't think anybody...
It's still
even
flashy. It's not like it's not flashy.
No, that's true, yeah.
I wish there were...
Who was the... and she's going to become the Wesley character. I can't remember her name. The roommate.
Oh, Sylvia.
Yes.
Sylvia. God.
The built-in friend.
Yes, the only one that
she
has
could have been so much more irritating, though. She could have been so much worse.
Outdone Neelix for me.
Me either.
That's impressive. When you outdo Neelix, for me, Holy crap!
You thought she was that bad? Oh, I didn't have.
I thought she was super irritating. I think the only thing that made her less irritating is that I hated Michael more. So that was it.
You like seeing Michael annoyed by
her. A lot of people don't like Michael Moore, but this is not about documentaries. This just turned into a Space Ghost episode, and it's great. But yeah, no, I didn't think she was irritating. I was kind of impressed that she didn't bother me that much.
She feels obligatory, but I thought they did the best job that they could with that idea.
She was at least a fully realized character that I understood what was going on with her.
She also feels like an anime character.
She has wants and needs and things. And
showing up and immediately announcing like your dream to be a starship captain. That's how an anime character is introduced into anime, and that was weird.
Yeah, she was super like. I'm like, okay, why are we Harry Kimmy? Like, wow, when Harry Kim is actually looking like a more progressive character. What is going on here? And I'm sorry, she is Neelix and Harry Kim wrapped into one. The only thing that makes her better is the fact that she's not Michael, because at least she seems like a decent human being, if very excitable and kind of sad. She's at least a decent human being, whereas Michael will just arbitrarily attack her captain if she thinks that she's in the right.
Well, based on this,
this is definitely a thing we disagree on. I thought she was pretty believable, and I thought that they pretty tastefully handled the Starfleet officer with like a mild mental condition thing pretty well.
She was on like the spectrum.
Yeah, I thought that was handled pretty well.
No, and actually them saying, "Well, my special needs." I wanted to reach through and find the author who put that line in there and slap him, because that was just like, I have special needs. Why? What are you doing? No, like you could have actually written a character with those quirks and not made it a commentary, and actually made it a more compelling character.
The argument on the other side is going to be, but people want those kinds of characters to be in Star Trek, and I don't know. I thought it was handled okay.
I will disagree on that one. Because I think that it was a little too pandering. I think it was a little...
Wow, okay.
I mean, I think I
expected some of that, and I was impressed that I didn't find it pandering.
think her existence is, but I thought they did the best execution they could.
Okay. And that... I might be overly... I just felt it was an overly sensitive... I might be overly sensitive on it.
Yeah.
I'll admit that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I have friends of mine who have ambiguous conditions, like I believe they were trying to portray, and
so you just thought it was unrealistic?
No, I actually felt that it was unrealistic, but I also felt that it was a little too. We're going to introduce this character and make her the quirky best friend. And I don't want Sheldon in space. And that's really what I felt that they were trying to go for. I felt it was very pandering. I felt it was a way of making a caricature more so than a character.
So you felt like it was like a stereotype to have a fun, quirky character and not taking that kind of thing seriously.
Exactly. And then I believe they tried to write her out of it later on by saying, well, I care a lot about, what people think of me and so on and so forth. But even in doing that, they kind of reinforce the stereotype in the first place. And I felt that was, I felt it was unnecessary. I felt that rather than give us a character archetype, they gave us a caricature. And that's sad.
Well, guys, let's go ahead and run the circle again and give everybody the opportunity to mention anything else that you wanted to make sure that we got to talk about that we didn't bring up. I'm going to start real quick and say that I love the triple on the desk. I love it, and initially I was like, well, he's like way too quirky and weird. He's got a tribble on his desk, and he eats fortune cookies that don't have fortunes in them, and I wanted them to have fortunes. In fact, I wanted at the end for him to be like, oh, I keep accidentally swallowing all this paper, or to at some point be like a secret message from my teeth, but so I guess he is a little bit eccentric because he has the whole fortune cookie thing. But the more I thought about it, the tribble on the desk makes a lot of sense because he's paranoid and at war with the Klingons. And if somehow or other he knows that tribbles repel Klingons, that's why that's on the desk. And I think that's awesome if that's why it's there. I like that a lot. And I mean, you can complain about continuity things, but we're not supposed to know about that yet. Whatever. But if if we just forget everything we know and people know about tribbles, that's fun.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, but like everything I know, I don't know what a tribble is.
Right, that's true, and so then
this is the problem this show exists in.
Yeah, and so that's only fun for me, and only if I'm right later. You
Yes.
know? But I have to assume that's why. I mean, that's such a, it's a dark, potentially scary character. There's no way he just has a tribble for no reason. It's weird that she doesn't ask about it. It's weird it's just there and she never says anything about it.
In his menagerie, he has a Gorn skeleton in the
Yes. I'm assuming that's a Gorn.
That's a Gorn. That is a Gorn. And it is a Gorn skeleton. And you have to sit there going,
he probably killed it with his bare hands.
Like,
I also wanted to bring up real quick that these episode titles are atrocious.
Oh, talk about next episode.
Okay, I'm going to. So the first episode is called The Vulcan Hello, and that's dumb for lots of reasons. One of them being just that the whole Vulcan hello thing is actually a Klingon hello, and the Vulcans like commandeer it because they think they know how to deal with other species, and it's just a convoluted kind of episode title. But also because we have to constantly shove in the episode title in lines of dialogue, and it seems like we're going to do that with every episode of the show.
Really excited for next episode.
Done that with the first couple.
Like the whole we're some kind of Suicide Squad meme.
Well, no, sort of, but it's just it's an episode title thing. We do this in a lot of things, and Star Trek has certainly done it before, where quite a bit. Where it's just we take a line of dialogue out of the script and we make it the episode title, and so you're just kind of waiting for it to happen, and then it gets really cheesy. When you drop it.
They need to get whoever titles the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes. Because those have the best episode titles.
I keep forgetting that the second episode actually has a title because we watched it together and I keep thinking of it as a 2-hour pilot. And apparently it wasn't going to air that way. But Battle of the Binary Stars is fine. That's not a bad title. That works.
But when Starro mentions it, I accorded myself well at the Battle of the Binary Stars. What? People don't name battles until after the war is over, guys. Come on.
Also, you wouldn't be more specific than that? Like, there's just the one binary like that. It's not descriptive.
And then the next one is Context is for Kings, and I like Alexi's read on that maybe it was called that because we don't have enough context in the show in the first place.
I will say I love the delivery of Context is for Kings.
I do too. I just wish it wasn't the episode title. That one's not a big deal, I guess. I mean,
it's a little grown. I mean, this is always a thing when you have a title like that.
It's just a problem if we keep doing it constantly. That's the only thing I'm complaining about.
Whenever we say the title in the thing, I always have like a little eye-rolly moment.
Did you wonder if we were thinking of Conscience of the King when we wrote that title?
Yeah.
And then.
I'm so excited.
So we are finally going to beat the lengthiest episode title in Star Trek for The World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky. I think actually DS9 might have a couple that are close to that long or as long.
Yeah, the one in Latin, maybe.
Inter Arnum Silent Legis.
Yeah,
that's not as long as For the World is title. If For the World is a long episode title, and I don't think there is. But the next episode, you guys, and I just can't wait to see this get shoved in dialogue if that happens. Oh, I want it to happen.
Me too. I'm so excited
right now.
A sentence.
If it does, I'm drinking heavily.
Whole sentence. The butcher's knife cares not for page turn the lamb's cry.
What?
The butcher's knife cares not for the lamb's cry. It's so long it requires a page turn.
That's incredible.
It's incredible.
It's the best episode title ever come up with.
Oh my goodness. And then the next one after that is going to be called Choose Your Pain. I want my pain. I need my pain.
I don't even...
And then the 6th episode, and that's the only, these are the only titles we have so far, is called Leave. So they at least have one that's,
Wait, what's it called?
short. Lethe. Leave.
Oh, it's called Leave.
Oh.
Yeah, leave. Go away.
Leave.
We don't want anymore. Yeah.
Well, I mean, based on that pilot, I wouldn't be surprised. We didn't want to make this show. Go. Don't look at us. Don't look at us.
Now, my question is looking forward. We're looking at bringing somebody like Harry Mudd into this universe.
Yeah.
What? Like, it's Harry Mudd. Harry Mudd is not supposed to be a dark, sinister character. In fact, he's played for comic relief.
He may not be. And also, we're, again, pretty clearly doing a reimagining Star Trek and pretending like we're not. So
did they show in the little previews and stuff some of Harry?
Yes, yeah, he's in there.
Is it
he's the guy with the
Rainn
beard.
Wilson?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Was that who that was?
Yeah.
Great. I mean, I like Rainn Wilson, but Star Trek.
I don't have a problem with Harry Mudd necessarily. We'll see how
I
that
never
goes.
liked him on the original series. So.
I just want
but they
him.
can make him like us. They can make us like him in this context.
I just want him to have a partner named Norman. just for fun.
So other things you guys want to make sure that we get to talk about. Those were my big extras. Eric, anything we didn't get to?
I don't think so.
Pretty thorough.
Yeah, I think we touched on everything.
Adam?
I don't think I.
Alexi, anything else you want to throw out?
Nothing except for the fact that I'm rooting for this series.
Me too.
I hope it does well. I think it has, despite having so many built-in advantages, including branding, recognition, money, a great cast, and the support of 2 entertainment juggernauts behind it, including Netflix, that I'm hoping that it has not saddled itself with an insurmountable issue with access and accessibility through its various streaming issues. And
it's ironic. It's called All Access when you say that.
I mean, in a very cynical way, I want this show to be awful, and I want it to crash and burn because All Access is insane.
Agreed.
Well, I guess like CBS Some Access didn't test well. So they had to change it.
We have trouble loading commercials access.
No, we have All Access. We have 9,000 episodes, Alden. It's amazing.
You can watch on Netflix.
All the Big Bang Theory and NCIS you can watch.
It's original.
Alden, anything else you wanted to bring up?
The next time we discuss this on the channel, I promise that I will have watched a good Trek so I can be more angry. And yeah, this is pretty much it.
That's what I spent last month doing.
I'll give you some primers. A lot of stuff on TNG by Melinda Snodgrass, particularly Measure of a Man.
Seen it actually.
That's the only episode she wrote, though, isn't it?
No, it is not. But it's one of the finest that she wrote, in my opinion.
I honestly, I thought she was a script supervisor. I didn't think she wrote any other scripts, but maybe she co-wrote them, and I don't know it. But anyway,
that was one where I honestly think that Star Trek TNG came into its own, and actually had Pulaski in it, which was actually ironic. But Star Trek Next Gen came into its own. Honestly, City on the Edge of Forever is still one of my favorites of all time.
I just watched the Drumhead. Go watch the Drumhead.
Watch the Drumhead.
Oh, Drumhead is awesome. Drumhead is amazing. In fact, in A Pale Moonlight, if you want to look at dark Star Trek done incredibly well, and A Pale Moonlight is amazing because it's somebody acting in character against the principles of Starfleet, but for all the right reasons. And it brings a moral ambiguity to a main character, but it does it in such a way that it's not ham-fisted. And again, one of my favorites. They're out there, and it's some good stuff.
Well, folks, thanks a lot for watching. We sure appreciate it. We will see you again with lots more content here on the channel this week. Tomorrow, I am posting. It was supposed to go up today, but
it will say that tomorrow you're posting this. Yes,
that's right. Alexa, I'm not talking to you. Shut up. Shh. Shh. I'm busy.
She's self-aware.
Look, I'm not. I'm not the terror. Okay, I'm not talking to you right now. No. Tomorrow I'm going to post a video about my Germany trip and show you all the geeky stuff I got on that trip. We're going to be doing some catch-up reviews this week, including the Lego Ninjago movie. Jason and I reviewed that. That video will come up in a day or two. Eric and I are going to go see Flatliners tomorrow for the 3 people that will care about that video. And got some other cool stuff in the queue. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching. We sure appreciate it. We will see you again very soon. Thanks for watching live if you did that. And thanks for watching after the fact if you did that as well. And I want to say a big giant thanks to my panel tonight. Really cool. I was able to get all you guys together to chat about this. And we're not going to be doing episode-to-episode reviews of this. I don't think. I guess I don't know if there's a lot of interest. Treknado could do that, but I'm not, and I am going to be watching every episode. I don't have plans for that right now, but if I get a lot of interest, Adam and I. But we will, at the very least, if we don't do that, we'll do a season overview when the season finishes in its entirety. So anyway, I am Captain Logan. This was Eric.
That was Eric.
That was Adam. There's Alden.
See you guys.
And Alexi. And I am Captain Logan saying good night, and I'm going to have to actually get up and go press the stop broadcast button, which is incredibly unprofessional, but that's what I'm going to do right now. See you later, folks. Okay, here we go.